What would you do if the one person you trusted most, the one you vowed to spend the rest of your life with, harbored a secret so devastating it could destroy everything? 2 days after a wedding filled with joy, laughter, and the promise of forever, an unexpected discovery shattered the fragile foundation of the new marriage. It was supposed to be the beginning of a beautiful life together. Instead, it became the prelude to an unthinkable tragedy. What could drive someone to hide such a truth? How does love turn into betrayal, and how does betrayal lead to such irreversible consequences? This is not a simple story. It's a story about love twisted into something unrecognizable, about trust given freely and broken without remorse. It's about the weight of secrets, the cost of loyalty, and the line between devotion and obsession. Stay with me as we unpack the layers of this shocking tale. A tale where love, deception, and betrayal collide in ways no one could have foreseen. What began as a promise of forever ends in heartbreak and tragedy. And it all starts here. Layla's story begins in loss. Her childhood was idyllic until the untimely death of her mother when she was only 8 years old. One moment, she was a carefree child, and the next, she was thrust into a world that felt cold and empty. The bond she shared with her mother had been profound, and losing her left a void that no one, not even her well-meaning father, could fill. Her father, Jerome, was a hard-working man who adored his daughter but found himself drowning in grief after his wife's death. As much as he tried to be both mother and father to Layla, the demands of his job and his own emotional pain left him falling short. Jerome remarried not out of a desire to replace Layla's mother, but because he believed a stable family environment was essential for his daughter's healing. He met Tasha, a kind and understanding woman, at a church support group for widows and widowers. Tasha came into their lives when Layla was a teenager. At first, Layla resisted the idea of another woman taking her mother's place. She was cold, distant, and defiant, holding on to her grief as a way to stay connected to her mother's memory. But Tasha's patience and persistence gradually broke through her defenses. She attended Layla's school events, helped her with homework, and stayed up late to console her during nightmares. Slowly but surely, Tasha became not just a stepmother, but a maternal figure Layla grew to trust and depend on. After Jerome passed away when Layla was in her 20s, the relationship between the two women deepened. Their shared grief created an unshakable bond. Tasha became Layla's closest confidant, her only family. But what began as a relationship of care and support evolved into something neither of them could have anticipated. The shift was gradual. Long conversations over wine turned into lingering touches. Nights spent comforting each other turned into something more intimate. Both women rationalized their actions as an extension of their unique bond, a way of coping with their losses. But in truth, they were crossing lines that could never be uncrossed. Layla, outwardly, seemed to have it all together. She built a career and surrounded herself with friends who admired her confidence and independence. Yet, behind closed doors, she battled deep inner conflicts. She knew the relationship with Tasha was unconventional, even forbidden, but she couldn't imagine her life without her stepmother. To maintain appearances, Layla dated casually. Her relationships always ended the same way. Her inability to fully invest emotionally drove partners away. When she met Jamal, she saw an opportunity. He was kind, charming, and eager to build a life with her. Marrying him offered Layla a way to quiet the doubts of those around her and perhaps even convince herself she could move on. But in her heart, she knew she was living a lie. Tasha's life before Jerome and Layla was a stark contrast to the nurturing figure she became. She grew up in a fractured home where emotional connection was a rare luxury. When she met Jerome, he represented the stability and love she had always craved. Marrying him gave her not only a partner but also a daughter who needed her, a role she took on wholeheartedly. Tasha genuinely cared for Layla, especially during her turbulent teenage years. She understood the pain of losing a parent and was determined to be the steady presence Layla needed. Their relationship was not without its challenges. Layla's initial resistance often tested Tasha's patience, but over time, they developed a bond stronger than Tasha had ever expected. When Jerome passed away, Tasha was devastated. The man who had given her a second chance at love was gone, leaving her to navigate life as a widow. But in the midst of her sorrow, she found solace in Layla. Their shared grief became the foundation of an even deeper connection. As the years went on, Tasha found herself in uncharted emotional territory. Her affection for Layla grew beyond what she had ever imagined. It began innocently enough, a touch of the hand here, a hug that lingered there. But the loneliness Tasha felt, combined with the intensity of their bond, blurred the lines between maternal care and romantic love. Tasha justified their relationship as a unique extension of their shared experiences. She convinced herself that no one could understand their connection, not even Layla's potential partners. Though she supported Layla's decision to date, deep down, Tasha feared losing her to someone else. Jamal was the kind of man anyone would be proud to marry. Raised in a close-knit family, he grew up understanding the importance of loyalty, respect, and unconditional love. His parents' marriage had set the standard for what he wanted in a partner, someone who would stand by him through life's ups and downs. He met Layla at a mutual friend's wedding, where her radiant smile and sharp wit immediately caught his attention. Jamal was drawn to her confidence and the air of independence she exuded. Their courtship was filled with thoughtful gestures and long conversations that made him believe he had found his perfect match. Jamal's dream was to build a family as solid and loving as the one he came from. He envisioned a life where he and Layla would support each other, raise children, and grow old together. He had no reason to doubt her commitment to him, at least, not at first. Early in their relationship, Jamal noticed Layla's close bond with her stepmother. To him, it was admirable, a testament to the kind of family he wanted to marry into. He appreciated how Tasha seemed to be a guiding force in Layla's life, offering wisdom and support. But there were moments that gave him pause. He noticed how Layla seemed to rely on Tasha for emotional support more than she relied on him. He dismissed these thoughts as overthinking, chalking it up to a strong mother-daughter relationship. Top of form. Bottom of form. From the outside, Layla and Jamal's relationship appeared to be a fairy tale. They were the kind of couple everyone admired, both accomplished, attractive, and seemingly perfect for each other. Jamal was deeply devoted to Layla, going out of his way to make her feel loved and secure. His gestures of affection were grand yet thoughtful, a testament to the genuine love he believed they shared. Layla, for her part, played the role of the adoring partner flawlessly. To anyone watching, there was no doubt that she cared for Jamal. She knew all the right things to say, all the little ways to make him feel special. But beneath her carefully constructed facade, she wrestled with the weight of a secret she could never share. Tasha remained a constant presence in Layla's life, her influence subtle yet pervasive. She was always there to offer advice, to help Layla navigate her relationship with Jamal, but her support came with an unspoken expectation that Layla's heart would always belong to her. Tasha's bond with Layla, built over years of emotional closeness, made it impossible for Layla to fully commit to Jamal, even as the relationship progressed toward engagement. When Jamal proposed, it was everything Layla should have wanted. He planned an elaborate evening, complete with candlelight and music, kneeling before her with a ring that symbolized his devotion. Friends and family cheered when Layla said yes, their excitement palpable as they celebrated what seemed like the beginning of a beautiful future. But for Layla, the moment was bittersweet. She smiled, laughed, and hugged Jamal tightly, but deep down, she felt an ache she couldn't ignore. Saying yes to Jamal felt like saying no to herself, to the feelings she had harbored for Tasha for so many years. Tasha, though outwardly supportive, struggled with her own emotions. Watching Layla accept another person's love stirred a mixture of pride and jealousy within her. She congratulated Layla, hugged her, and even helped plan parts of the wedding, but her actions carried an undercurrent of manipulation. Through subtle comments and shared moments, she ensured that Layla remained emotionally tethered to her. The wedding was everything a couple could hope for. It was held in a beautiful venue, adorned with flowers and filled with the laughter of family and friends. Layla walked down the aisle in a stunning gown, her smile radiant as Jamal waited at the altar. Guests marveled at the couple's love story, convinced they were witnessing the start of a lifelong partnership. Jamal's happiness was undeniable. His eyes never left Layla's as they exchanged vows, his voice steady and full of emotion as he promised to love and cherish her forever. For him, this day was the culmination of all his hopes and dreams, the beginning of the life he had always wanted. But beneath the surface, Layla was struggling. The weight of her secret pressed down on her, turning every moment of joy into a reminder of the truth she was hiding. As she spoke her vows, her voice wavered, not from emotion but from guilt. She knew she didn't love Jamal the way he loved her, and standing there before him, she felt like an imposter. Leading up to the wedding, Layla had convinced herself that this marriage was the right decision. She believed that marrying Jamal would allow her to move on, to bury her feelings for Tasha and build a new life. But as the ceremony unfolded, the reality of what she was doing became impossible to ignore. Every glance at Tasha during the wedding felt like a reminder of the bond they shared. Tasha's supportive smile was a comfort and a torment, a silent acknowledgement of the love they couldn't openly express. Layla felt trapped between two worlds, one where she fulfilled societal expectations by marrying Jamal, and another where she followed her heart but risked everything. Throughout the wedding, Tasha played her part flawlessly. She helped Layla get ready, offering words of encouragement and making sure every detail of the day was perfect. To everyone around her, she was the epitome of a proud stepmother, thrilled to see Layla happy and settled. But behind her supportive demeanor was a woman grappling with her own complex emotions. Tasha's love for Layla was all-consuming, and watching her marry someone else felt like a betrayal, even if she couldn't say so. She found subtle ways to assert her influence, pulling Layla aside for quiet moments of reassurance, ensuring that the bond they shared remained unbroken. Tasha's presence at the wedding was a constant reminder to Layla of the life she was leaving behind. Even as Layla tried to focus on Jamal, she couldn't escape the pull of Tasha's gaze, the unspoken connection that still tied them together. As the wedding celebrations drew to a close, Jamal was blissfully unaware of the emotional storm raging within Layla. He held her hand as they left the venue, his heart full of excitement for the future. Layla smiled and played along, but inside, she felt like she was standing on the edge of a precipice, unsure of how long she could keep up the charade. Tasha, meanwhile, lingered in the background, watching as the newlyweds left to start their life together. Her outward composure masked the turmoil within, the jealousy and longing she tried desperately to suppress. The wedding may have been picture perfect, but it set the stage for a marriage built on secrets and unspoken truths, a union destined to unravel in ways no one could have foreseen. 2 days into married life, Jamal found himself alone in their home, filled with a strange sense of emptiness. Layla had left earlier that evening, saying she was meeting up with some girlfriends. He encouraged her to go, believing she deserved to unwind after the whirlwind of their wedding and reception. But as the hours passed, boredom crept in. He glanced at the clock repeatedly, wondering when Layla might return. Deciding he couldn't spend the entire evening waiting, he thought of her mother, Tasha. The two had always gotten along, and she had been nothing but kind and supportive since they'd first met. Maybe she'd appreciate some company, too. Grabbing his keys, Jamal left the house, his thoughts preoccupied with plans to share a laugh or two with his new mother-in-law. The drive to her home was quick, familiar. He felt a pang of gratitude for Tasha's presence in Layla's life, unaware of what awaited him. As Jamal turned into Tasha's driveway, he immediately noticed something odd: Layla's car parked outside. For a brief moment, confusion flickered in his mind. Had Layla decided to visit her mother instead of going out with her friends? The thought was puzzling, but not alarming. He figured she'd dropped by to check on her mother before heading out. He stepped out of his car and approached the house, expecting to hear the hum of conversation or the faint sound of a television through the windows. Instead, silence greeted him. The house felt still, almost too quiet. Unlocking the front door with the spare key Tasha had given him, Jamal called out cheerfully. "Hello? Layla? Tasha?" His voice echoed through the house, unanswered. As he stepped inside, a faint sound caught his attention. It was coming from upstairs, muffled voices or movements, hard to distinguish. He paused, his brows furrowing. Something about the sound felt off. He climbed the staircase cautiously, the muffled noise growing louder with each step. At the top of the stairs, his heart began to race. He moved toward the partially closed bedroom door, his instincts warning him that something wasn't right. Jamal pushed the door open slowly, his mind still struggling to piece together the possibilities of what he might find. But nothing could have prepared him for the sight before him. There, tangled in the bed, were Layla and Tasha. His wife, the woman he had just promised to love and cherish for the rest of his life, and her stepmother, the woman he had come to respect and admire. The room froze in a surreal moment. Jamal's heart pounded in his chest, his breath caught in his throat, and his mind struggled to process what his eyes were seeing. Shock quickly gave way to disbelief. He staggered backward, gripping the doorframe for support. His voice cracked as he finally managed to speak. What the hell is this?" Layla and Tasha scrambled to cover themselves, their faces painted with panic and shame. "Jamal, please, I can explain," Layla pleaded, her voice trembling. "Explain?" Jamal's voice rose, a mix of anger and heartbreak. "You want to explain this?" He gestured wildly at the bed, at the two women who had shattered his trust in an instant. Tasha tried to intervene, stepping forward, her hands raised in a calming gesture. "Jamal, listen, this isn't what it looks like." But her words only fueled his rage. "It's exactly what it looks like," he yelled. His world was unraveling, every certainty he'd built his life upon crumbling in front of him. Jamal turned on his heel, heading toward the stairs. His mind was spinning, his thoughts a chaotic storm of betrayal and fury. Layla lunged after him, desperation driving her actions. "Jamal, wait. Don't go," she cried, grabbing his arm. "Get off me." Jamal snapped, yanking his arm away. But Layla, panicked and desperate, held on tighter. She wasn't thinking clearly, she just knew she couldn't let him leave, couldn't let him walk out and expose their secret. In the struggle, Jamal's footing slipped on the edge of the top stair. Layla, still gripping his arm, lost her balance as well. The motion sent him tumbling backward. His head struck the sharp edge of the stone step with a sickening thud. Everything went silent. Layla froze, her hands trembling as she stared at Jamal's lifeless body sprawled at the bottom of the staircase. Blood began to pool beneath his head, vivid and stark against the polished floor. She let out a strangled scream, dropping to her knees. Tasha rushed to the scene, her face pale with horror. Oh my God," she muttered, shaking her head as if trying to will the reality away. "Jamal." Layla sobbed, reaching for him, her hands hovering over his body but too afraid to touch. She looked up at Tasha, her tear-streaked face twisted in panic. "What do we do? What do we do?" Tasha's voice was shaky but firm as she grabbed Layla's shoulders. We have to think. We can't call anyone yet. We need to figure this out." But there was no figuring this out. The betrayal had already spiraled into tragedy, and nothing they did could change the fact that Jamal's life had ended on that staircase. This moment of discovery and its devastating aftermath marked the turning point in a story already mired in secrecy and betrayal, leading to consequences neither Layla nor Tasha could have imagined. As the weight of Jamal's lifeless body sunk in, panic took over. Layla and Tasha stared at each other, their faces pale and etched with fear. Layla clutched her head, mumbling incoherently, while Tasha paced back and forth, trying to regain control of the situation. "We have to think," Tasha said, her voice low but trembling. "No one can find out about this." Layla, barely able to form words through her sobs, shook her head. "What do we do, Tasha? This wasn't supposed to happen." Tasha, taking charge as she always had, began to spin a plan. They dragged Jamal's body into the guest bedroom, trying to hide the growing pool of blood on the stairs. Cleaning supplies were hastily fetched, and they scrubbed the steps in silence, their frantic movements betraying the sheer terror they felt. Afterward, they rehearsed their story. Layla would claim that Jamal had slipped on the stairs while visiting Tasha. It would be an accident, nothing more. "We stick to this," Tasha said firmly, gripping Layla's hands. No details. No cracks. But no matter how carefully they rehearsed, their guilt hung in the air, unshakable and suffocating. When the paramedics arrived, summoned by a tearful Layla, their initial reaction was one of concern. Tasha calmly explained that Jamal had come over for an unplanned visit and slipped on the stairs. But the paramedics, seasoned in detecting unusual circumstances, immediately noticed the faint traces of blood near the stairwell, poorly cleaned despite their efforts. The police were notified, and a routine accident inquiry quickly escalated. Detectives questioned Layla and Tasha separately, and inconsistencies in their accounts began to emerge. Layla claimed Jamal was simply visiting, but Tasha mentioned Layla stopping by unexpectedly that evening. The timeline didn't add up. As investigators pieced together evidence, the cracks in their cover story widened. Neighbors reported seeing Layla arrive hours earlier than she claimed. A forensic examination revealed bloodstains in places that didn't align with an accidental fall. The truth began to surface, and suspicion turned into full-blown investigation. The police pressed Layla relentlessly. Her fragile emotional state became her undoing. Unable to withstand the pressure, she broke down during an interrogation, admitting that Jamal had fallen after a heated argument. What she left unsaid, what she couldn't bear to admit, was the truth about why they had been arguing in the first place. The trial became a spectacle, drawing attention as details of the affair emerged. Layla and Tasha were charged with manslaughter, with the prosecution arguing that their actions, though unintentional, had directly led to Jamal's death. In court, the tension was palpable. Layla's emotional testimony painted a picture of a woman torn between guilt and heartbreak. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she sobbed, her voice breaking. "I never wanted Jamal to get hurt." Tasha, stoic but visibly strained, took the stand to defend their actions. She described the argument as a tragic misunderstanding, framing their attempts to hide the truth as acts of fear rather than malice. But as the prosecution dug into their relationship, the affair was laid bare for the world to see. The courtroom gasped as texts and emails between Layla and Tasha were read aloud, revealing the depth of their emotional and physical connection. The defense tried to argue that their relationship was irrelevant to the case, but the prosecution used it to paint a picture of deception and selfishness. In the end, the jury found Layla and Tasha guilty of manslaughter. Layla, due to her visible remorse, emotional vulnerability, and cooperation during the investigation, Layla received a 10-year sentence, with the possibility of parole after 5 years for good behavior. The court considered her lesser role in the physical altercation leading to Jamal's death and her eventual admission of guilt as mitigating factors. Tasha, seen as the more dominant and influential figure in both the relationship and the attempted cover-up, Tasha received a harsher sentence of 15 years, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. The prosecution had argued that Tasha's manipulation and involvement in the cover-up demonstrated a higher level of culpability, and the court agreed. Their sentences reflected the court's recognition of their intent to deceive but also acknowledged the accidental nature of Jamal's death. As they were led away in handcuffs, the courtroom buzzed with whispers. The affair that had stayed hidden for years was now exposed for all to see, and the cost of their secrecy had been paid in full. Jamal's family mourned the loss of a man who had only wanted to build a life filled with love and trust, his death a haunting reminder of the devastating power of betrayal. The story didn't end with the trial, it lingered in the hearts of everyone who had followed it, a cautionary tale of love gone wrong and the irreparable damage caused by secrets too heavy to bear. Layla and Tasha's relationship was anything but conventional. At its core, it was born from a place of grief and longing, each woman seeking solace in the other after losing a husband and a father. But what began as an emotional crutch evolved into a connection that defied societal norms, morality, and even their own understanding of love. Layla's feelings for Tasha were tangled with gratitude, admiration, and dependency, making it difficult for her to separate maternal care from romantic attachment. Tasha, on the other hand, found herself grappling with a profound sense of belonging that she hadn't experienced in years. Their love was not just forbidden, it was layered with guilt, denial, and an overwhelming fear of exposure. Yet, the psychological pull of their relationship was undeniable. It filled the emotional voids in their lives, but did so at the expense of clarity, boundaries, and, ultimately, their moral compass. The secrecy that defined their bond turned it into a powder keg, one that exploded in the most tragic way. For Jamal, the betrayal wasn't limited to Layla's infidelity. Jamal had welcomed Tasha into his life as a supportive mother-in-law, someone who he believed had Layla's best interests at heart. To find them entwined in a betrayal of such magnitude was more than he could process. It was a violation of everything he held sacred. This shattered trust not only led to his untimely death but also served as a reminder of how fragile human relationships can be when secrets are involved. It's a devastating truth: the closer we are to someone, the deeper the wounds when they betray us. The story of Layla, Tasha, and Jamal forces us to confront difficult questions. Were Layla and Tasha simply victims of circumstance, drawn together by shared pain and an intense emotional bond? Or did they knowingly choose a path that was destined to end in tragedy? Is love truly blind, or are there some relationships that should never cross certain lines? And what happens when trust, the cornerstone of any bond, is shattered beyond repair? Secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of surfacing. And when they do, the damage they cause can ripple far beyond what anyone could imagine. Jamal's death was the most tragic outcome of this tangled web, but the repercussions didn't stop there. Layla and Tasha, once inseparable, now face years of imprisonment, their bond fractured under the weight of guilt and consequence. In the end, we're left with one pressing question: can love justify betrayal, or are some lines never meant to be crossed? This story reminds us of the complexity of human emotions, the fragility of trust, and the price we pay for keeping secrets too heavy to bear. If you found this story compelling, thought-provoking, or emotional, consider subscribing to our channel. We explore stories like this, diving deep into the human psyche and the choices that shape our lives. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.